we've gathered you all here so we can commemorate the actual ending to Babylon 5. This is the episode I would have called the ending of Babylon 5 because it wraps it up okay.
Yeah.
Kind of a retrospective episode, and is also kind of a filler episode if you really think about it.
I've been thinking that Babylon 5, that this was the end for the last 2 or 3 episodes. It's been feeling very like, and we are complete. I can't imagine what they're going to do next because it's over. They did all the things, and I hope they don't F it up because it's been so good. I'm not really sure where they can go from here.
This is the second time they've done that. Like, they perfectly ended the show, and they get a whole other season. Like, I guess there's places that you can go. We can fill in that year we didn't get to see.
I look at the last episode where they finally finish their mission to Earth and liberate Earth and Mars. That actually comes across as a perfect ending because the monologue at the end with Delenn, it says everything and it's great. But then we were like, okay, so if that's not the end, then what's going on in episode 22? And here we are. First off, there's not a ton to talk about. This is kind of a straightforward episode, but we can break it up. But my thoughts are, it's kind of a cool way to look at and commemorate the entire series, mainly because the big stories have been wrapped up. There is a story that season 5 will explore a lot more, and there are a couple of things, even though they did wrap it up in the last episode, there are a couple of things that we can kind of speculate on. For instance, like what's up with Captain Ivanova. What is in store for Garibaldi's future? Those are some things that we can expect to see a little bit of acknowledgement in the next season. But this episode really kind of jumps around, and it does that on purpose. But honestly, I kind of enjoy it because it's like, okay, we've gone through this journey, this battle between light and dark, these civil wars between these different species. Earth is doing the Earth thing, and when you get to the end, you haven't solved your problems permanently because there are new people involved, new structures and all that stuff. So people are going to have to encounter new things.
It also very much parallels like the idea of what happens, what we do with our past. I thought that was
yes, you are right, because we see immediately after the alliance is established, people are doubting the motives of Sheridan and Delenn or the alliance altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because when I watched it halfway through, I looked at Sunday. I'm like, hey, how's it going? You enjoying this? She's like, it's like I'm watching CNN. And honestly, that was kind of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy a good debate. And it's funny having like the firsthand perspective of a thing that people in the future are having a secondhand observation of and being classified as like the expert in a field of something and trying to make assertions of how something happened when they weren't there, and they're like so sure and feel justified in their perspective, and it's just like it's kind of wild to consider how we do that now, because all of us has had a conversation about a past character, even when it comes to something not as serious as political and government matters, but like sports or music, and you have a newer generation making assumptions about the previous generation and trying to say, whether Steve Curry is better than Michael Jordan or whatever the hell, fill in the blanks. And like those things happen a little faster to where the people who were here to witness it firsthand are still here to kind of like combat it. But this did it in these really large gaps of 100 years. And the way we watch TV around here is subject to the potential buffering. And at one point in the show, when the TV started messing up, I thought it was the buffering, but it was the part of the show. And I thought that was really cute. It had me going for a second, like, oh shoot, the TV's messing up.
So let's go ahead and jump into it. So in our introduction, Sheridan returns to the station. Him and Delenn, they're in their spaceship, and it says just married on the side, which I thought that was kind of funny. When they walk onto the docking, when they walk onto the deck, they're surrounded by a lot of the B5 officers. They're throwing confetti at them. And it was one of those things where even like Garibaldi and Franklin confessed, like, hey, we knew that you weren't going to like this, but we decided to do it anyway because people want to celebrate. I liked how when they walked out of the shuttle, Delenn and Sheridan looked at each other like, oh no. They had this hesitation, like, what did we just walk into? And then I liked how Londo, he walks in, he's like, so yeah, who died?
I'm sitting there thinking Marcus, like,
Yeah. um I kind of like his explanation, but then he says it and explains it in such a way that's very Centauri, which means it's kind of asshole-ish.
mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, funerals are festive like this, but weddings, no. Weddings are very solemn and very serious situations. He was saying something to the effect of after you get like all of the sadness and mourning part out of the way, then you're kind of comfortable with how bad a marriage would be. And then you're just kind of comfortable with it. And I'm just like, whoa. So you've done this 3 times.
Yeah, because marriage in their culture is not about a relationship.
And they don't celebrate relationships. They hate each other in marriage. They kill each other as friends. They join into like these weird alliances to murder their political opponents. So yeah, of course, all of
That would have better soap opera spinoff. Just go to Centauri.
absolutely, yeah, that's hilarious.
It's their everyday life, like
Like just everyday life navigating their culture would be. It would definitely have to be a drama, but they would have to over dramatize it, kind of like a telenovela.
yeah. Well, they are over dramatic. And you could easily do that as the story between the time that Londo Emperor and
Oh yeah.
yeah, his death. That would for a good sci-fi soap opera.
Sci-fi soap opera. You know, the only other sci-fi soap opera I can think of is Caprica. Did you ever get a chance to watch that?
No, probably. Well, Deep Space Nine is technically a soap opera.
Uh, I kind of look
I mean,
at Deep
they
Space Nine
call
as like kind of like I guess a war epic, but I guess you can say it's also a soap opera because it does a lot of the things that MASH did. It was a
hmm
wartime drama, but it was kind of comical at the same time.
Yeah, like Star Trek magazine when I was a kid and it came out, they called it a soap opera and said that it was TV's first sci-fi soap opera. That's where I'm getting that from.
That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of funny because when you said that, my mind immediately went to this horrible fantasy soap opera. I think it was called, oh gosh, Legends or something like that. It was like a legit fantasy soap opera where people had magic powers and all that stuff. I can't think of the name of it. Dang. Oh well. All right. So what in the middle of their getting into the celebration and explaining things, we hear that the ISN newsfeed that's showing this whole thing about Sheridan and Delenn is being interrupted because there's temporal distortion. And now we're wondering, like, okay, what's actually going on? And it goes to the screen and it shows that we're in a temporal video recall system. And they are looking at records from 2262 to 3262. So 1,000 years worth of time. And I thought this was a pretty cool way to experience the show through that
Oh,
lens.
wait, you said 1,000? Oh, the whole show. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Well, most of the show is 1,000 years, and then at the end, they're like 1,000,000 years in the future.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I thought this was a cool way for us to experience the show because we're seeing it through someone else's eyes. The big mystery is, well, whose eyes are we seeing it through? And that does get revealed, I think, pretty satisfyingly at the end. So when we come back, what we see in 2262, there is this broadcast on ISN Nightside, which is pretty hilarious because I think that's when like all of those like investigative shows and editorial shows were doing their nighttime thing, like 2020 and Dateline and all of that stuff. So that's kind of what this is looking like. They have the reporters are on the station walking around talking, and they're explaining a bit of Sheridan's history. And this is where they put a lot of the stuff into perspective. He had a period of time where he was obsessed with
Was it the
Tibet,
Dalai Lama?
something Tibet. He had like an obsession with like Tibetan culture or something like that. And then he went to the military. And then we hear about his time that encounter war with that one species that I can't remember. I should have wrote it down. And then the food riots on Mars, and then the Earth Minbari War. All of those things did come up in the show, but in context, they're trying to put it together to be like, okay, Sheridan's been part of these major historical events, and it shaped his point of view. Which, yeah, I could see that. But then during their interview, they're trying to shape Sheridan as being more of a megalomaniac, as being power hungry, or not being qualified for being the president of the alliance. So immediately you see that they're putting in the spin to say like, this is not a good thing. One of the panel is Senator Metairie, which that's a heck of a name. She's expressing cautious optimism. And the other one, the commentator Ellis, the one that's really like snippy and snarky, he's expressing strong criticism and pessimism. Because this whole thing is like, he's like, he doesn't even know how he's going to keep these people in line. You're going to have to use military force.
Yeah, very emotional about everything.
Very emotional. Yeah. The other guy, his name is Tanner. Tanner's the black guy, and he has this strong theatrical voice. He reminds me of Avery Brooks from Deep Space Nine. That's Captain Sisko. They both have like this strong theatrical voice that they can belt and emote with. And he really is. And it's kind of funny because like he's trying his hardest to sound unsure, but I'm just like, yo, you are really killing these lines right now.
And like the guy was questioning everything. He was supposed to be from France. He did not say
Really?
French. Yeah, they said from France. And then the black guy, he's from Mars. So
Yeah.
Mars,
Oh yeah,
I
that's right.
felt like maybe he was more partial to Sheridan because he was able to help them gain independence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he brings up how this the Senate was just sitting on the whole Mars issue forever, and then Sheridan came and forced the issue, and now it's like, oh yeah, we're free now. We have autonomy. We can make our own decisions. And I think at some point during this broadcast, they were talking about how Mars is going to be establishing independent political parties, and so there would be a lot of political movement on the planet because they finally have the opportunity to have a say on what they're going to do. One of the criticisms was like Sheridan firing on his own ships shows that he's unhinged. I thought that was pretty hilarious, and like he's just not ready. He's power hungry. And they talk about the problems. This is where they hint at what's going to happen in the future of Babylon 5. They talk about spy problems, telepath problems, and problems at home. So if you didn't know that season 5 was going to happen, you'd be like, ooh, those are some interesting stories. They could probably continue the show on one of these. And since we've seen a lot with that, would be kind of an obvious jump off point.
They built such a huge world that you can't just close up everything.
Yeah. Right.
So they very much leave it open for new stuff.
And that is kind of cool. It like even with where they are now in at the end of season 4, if they want to do a revival of Babylon 5, they can jump off any one of these. Then we jump to 2362. This was the most interesting part of the episode for me because we're 200 years in the future of the Babylon 5 people. I'm sorry, we're 100 years in the future of the Babylon 5 people. And we have a panel of people having the discussion about Sheridan's legacy, Sheridan and Delenn's legacy. And they're long enough away from the timing of the events that these things have fallen into kind of like rumor and myth. They can look up some things, but things have been distorted to the point where people are more cynical about the deeds of Delenn and Sheridan and the need for the alliance. And it's really interesting because we see this today. I remember after the Bush years were over, they were talking about how history is going to look kindly on George Bush. He's going to be considered one of the best presidents that had ever lived. And I am very happy to say history does not look kind on George Bush. History has continued to look at him as the worst and dumbest president up until this point. um, he's pretty awful, pretty bad, and he's still making appearances and talking. People are still asking his opinion on things, and it's just so wild.
And that's where we get the perspective that I was bringing up before on how it was far enough away that some people were still there, but it was still pretty long ago. And it's funny how time can be like looking in the rearview mirror. And what does it say on the mirror? That the objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. And so when you look at stuff like women's rights and things, a lot of times it can feel like those things happened so long ago. But when you start running them dates, it's like, yo, that was not that long ago. And
Yeah,
we,
like my mom was a teenager when they passed these laws. It's
yeah,
not that long ago.
especially things like when I retell a story about my fair complected mother living in the city during segregation. And I say, well, my mom, was a part of segregation. It just feels like, golly, that that's wild. Like she's there when that was happening. And so for the people there are kind of like younger, I would imagine, out of college, but still maybe in their 30s or something. And they're just like full of opinion and the facts, and they know a thing, and they're ready to fight over their perspective of how history occurred when realistically, like, you wasn't there. So all of this is assumption at best. And I'll let Damien tell the next part, but it was really frustrating when this next part happens. And even with like evidence smacking you in the face, people will still reject and deny and, I don't know, hold on to their cognitive dissonance even in the face of factual information.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird that they were being very emotional about it. Like they're trying to present it as though they're being factual and historical, and it's a college lecture that's being broadcast. And they're all just being emotional about it. And I'm like, you're supposed to be teaching students, and y'all are just like, they're like, well, I just believe he's this, this, and that. Like, aren't you supposed to be teaching history? Just stick to the facts because you weren't there. It was very theatrical. It took me out of the story. It put me in the story as far as like us having it really showed that it's trying to tell the perspective of what people thought of them at that time. It probably would have made more sense for like a study group of those students after watching it to talk about it after the professors gave the lecture that they was or the discussion.
It reminds me of lectures and discussions that I was part of in college because people do get emotional. Because a lot of times people take perspectives that they take very strong stances and very narrow perspectives of things, not because that they have done extensive study, but because they've done a little bit of study that confirms their perspective.
Hmm.
And this panel, they are not necessarily against anything that anybody said there. They're just kind of piling on like, well, the truth is not really available to us, and the story is more propaganda to paint Delenn and Sheridan as heroes. Humans need to have heroes, and that's part of our evolution, and that's why it's obvious that everything that we know about them is fake. you know? And we're kind of seeing this now in the I would say in the last 10 to 15 years. It's always about like, oh, even though you are citing facts and you are backing things up with research, you are forwarding a narrative. and therefore you can't be trusted. Even though what you say can be verified by facts, you are forwarding a narrative and it can't be trusted. And so we need to take everything that you say and disbelieve it. That's been going on in our media and that's been going on in our political climate for the last 2 decades because the idea is to discredit education, to discredit critical thinking.
I feel like flat earthers.
Yeah, flat earthers, and that's actually
That-
a part of it too because
yeah.
it's anti-intellectualism, but it's being disguised as anti-elitism or anti-establishment. What?
Their way of being anti-establishment falls into the establishment. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's funny because what I've been seeing lately that would pop up with some of these political commentators. They're not even like political. They're more like content creators. But their whole thing is, academia leans left, and therefore they are indoctrinating people to become left. But then what's being cited is like peer reviewed studies that people can have access to, and it contradicts a lot of the conservative viewpoints when they are trying to manipulate data. And so since they can't manipulate the data, they discredit it.
Right.
It's not just like strictly a conservative perspective that does that. It's people who are trying to establish like an authoritarian or autocratic perspective where you can't trust information.
Right. Because I've been seeing that a lot in watching certain content where creationist content. Well, people reacting and they'll just straight up take a headline or take a sentence out and they'll show the whole page from a book, and then the scientists reacting to it is like they'll pause it right there and read the next sentence that shows that what they're saying is wrong. Like, you didn't read the whole the paragraph. You only nitpick what you wanted to prove what you wanted to say, and you're like, so they're wrong because I only read one sentence out of the whole page.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. I think we'll be able to have an opportunity to jump on that during some side missions because there is a lot. And sci-fi has a lot of fun dealing with that issue.
Mhm. Oh
um,
yeah.
so the part that Sunday was talking about, it's great and hilarious to me because it is played for drama. The broadcaster says we are experiencing a breach, an unauthorized breach, and then we hear some chimes, and then out of nowhere, in comes old Delenn. Delenn is like 140 years old. She came in right when they were explaining how like there's no way that she could be alive. Yeah, we know that Minbari live a long time, maybe 120 years, but 140, no way. And then here she is. She just pops up. My question is like, what kind of technology are they using to where she could just pop up? Are they doing beaming? Are they beaming each other in there now? Like, do the Minbari got teleporters? Which that's awesome.
Yeah. Or like, does she know that they were going to do this? Because it was like a Neo thing that they were doing. Like,
He was at home watching ISN. It's just like, nope. I got give these people a piece of my mind. They talk about my man. I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna go ahead and defend him in front of the whole galaxy.
Not today, Satan.
Right.
It made me think about Orville when the female Mocklin had to go to court and take up
uh,
for the. I'm not sure if transgender is going to be the right phrase because she was augmented at birth against her will and she was just transitioning back. But she was able to use her own writings that the Mocklin culture hailed as like some of the best theological thoughts of all time. And they didn't know that it was being written by a woman because she had used a man's name. And very much like in this episode, when Delenn came out and she speaks her piece, and she's clear in the air. I am alive. This is what it was. I was there. So this is the gospel. The guy goes to contradict her right in her face, like, how you gonna tell me that my experience is invalid? It's a very, man thing to do.
she's only come to be like, Sheridan was a great man. Don't talk bad about him, right? And then she's ready to go. The dude is like, yeah, but obviously you would say that because, and then she just looks at him with this death stare, and I was like, God. And he just shuts up, and he swallows hard because he's like, shit, she's looking right at me, huh? She can see me.
Yeah, that was giving keyboard warrior reality moment.
She gave her that mom look.
Like, I said what I said. Don't make me say it again. I'm gonna have to come over there and say it with my stick. So Delenn then disappears. She gets transported back to her ship. And then we jump again. This one was kind of a cool sequence. So we jump 500 years. We're at 2762. And it is Daniel. He's a man he works with. Apparently, it's called Paulet Division, which is an Earth faction. And he is blatantly wearing an SS pendant on his lapel. Bro is a Nazi. He's a space Nazi.
Uh-huh.
And I'm glad that they use visuals to explain it, because they don't go too much into depth until later when they're talking about the expansionistic objectives of Earth. He's hanging out in a recreation of Babylon 5, and he brings up holograms of Delenn, Sheridan, Franklin, and Garibaldi. They're sitting at their futuristic looking table in those silver lawn chairs. Every time I see their furniture, I'm like, who bought this stuff? This looks terrible. Anyway, they had to save money. So he creates these holographic recreations of them, and the idea is he wants to create and manipulate the narrative of Sheridan and what he did with the Alliance, because the Paula division and the I guess whatever that division is on Earth, they want to discredit them to then support their own objectives, which is imperialistic expansion. He updates them with some information, and they get to talk to each other. And it's kind of cool because it's like they realize, like, oh shit, we're holograms. So are we? He's like, yep, y'all been dead for a long time. So don't worry about that. He runs a couple of tests where he changes their personalities. He silences all the other characters except for Sheridan, and Sheridan is on a recreated version of Babylon 5 with the Alliance soldiers and like some aliens. And he does this very like aggressive speech talking about how their blood is going to help forge the peace for the future. And then he oversees the execution of these people. And that's exactly what they want to do. They want to show that Sheridan's not such a good guy, eh? He's overseeing it's death squads.
He's over here doing the thing that we're trying to do. We're not the one doing it. It's him.
Mm-hmm.
Which
That
also shows how
disturbed
powerful his memory is, because they have to discredit someone who died 500 years ago in order to get their point across. Like, grand day.
that disturbed me quite a bit because I was still trying to figure out, like, is all of this hologram except for the one Nazi guy, or is the hologram talking to like an actual squad of people that's about to get shot down? And it was really difficult for my brain to try to conceive because it was happening right now. Like, no, he really about to get an order to shoot these people. And I was trying to figure out, like, is the hologram of himself gonna, I don't know, break free of programming and do the right thing? It was a mess.
Yeah. Um it was also interesting to see that, because how easily he was able to manipulate things. Granted, this is on a military base, but it made me think about deep fakes and the role of AI in propaganda right now. AI has come a long way in the last 10 years. It went from um those weird images where it looks like a person hallucinating to some pretty convincing animations. Now, they don't look like real people, but it looks like maybe someone did some really nice CG to get these people, you know?
Mhm.
They are taking videos where it looks like a real thing, and then something ridiculous happens, like, oh yeah, this is clearly AI. Like, there's one of them where there's this woman about to bowl, and instead of her like winding up and letting the ball go, she spins her entire torso, splits in half, and then her torso jumps on the ceiling and crawls away. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, some of them are really creepy, like they transform into monsters. There's this one channel where they do video vlogs of like biblical characters, and they're
Oh
all
yeah.
like their phones up and vlogging the stuff that they're going through. I'm like, this is so goofy.
Yeah, I've seen the ones too that were like the aliens on the street interviews. Those are pretty funny too. But yeah, it made me think about that because that was a fear that was expressed by people maybe 10 years ago when it came to deep fakes, that people are going to take these and then start to manipulate people's perspectives based on you can see it on the video, so then you won't trust anything you see on the video. It's an old tactic. It is something that was imported to the United States, and I'm
Mhm.
just gonna leave it as cryptic as that for this episode because we could talk about all of that a little bit later because there's some other TV shows that do this.
I was thinking about the conspiracy theorists, and they be finding that they actually there's one picture that's literally from a Photoshop competition that they keep using to prove that there were giants, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't do no research enough, but they're just like, there's so many of them where people are just pointing at a picture that's clearly AI, and they're like, see, they're lying to us, it's real.
But that's the thing. People want to believe the alternatives to what the truth is because they're like, oh, the elites are lying to us. And it's like, yo, some kids in high school made this picture. Like, how? Anyway,
Have y'all seen the one where the moon landing is explained? Like, where did the cameraman come from? If this person is the first person to go onto the moon, then who's the person holding the camera and how they get the rover up there or whatever? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
they ask like the dumbest questions. Anyway, like I said, we could get into this on another on another episode. Okay, so what happens? We see Franklin gets manipulated, and he's talking about doing these illegal operations on children to have them
Nicks
installed.
on babies. It was
Yep,
so terrible.
yep,
The way he said children.
yeah. But think about it. Think about the things that they were doing to manipulate people. First, Sheridan has death squads. Franklin is doing experiments on these innocent children. Like these are some extremely emotionally charged accusations, and that's how they want to get support for their side. Like we do this to this day. Whenever a politician wants to shut down a movement, they always bring up kids.
There's a cult leader who, for the last 15 years, have been saying that he was doing things for kids, and made it all about the kids, and all he did was line his pockets.
And I just can't help but think about all of the cult leaders, also Christian pastors and priests who find themselves arrested for child abuse and trafficking all the time. And those are often opponents to progressive political movements. And it's just so interesting because they always like, well, think of the children, think of the children. It's like, you're hurting the children.
It's like they're the ones over there doing what I'm doing. Don't look at me. Look over there. They're just minding their own business over there.
Yep. So the Garibaldi hologram, he talks to Daniel, and Daniel's like, I'm gonna shut you down. But Garibaldi is like, no, 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 no. Wait, chill out. You know, maybe I can give you some pointers. And he gets Daniel to kind of reveal the plans. Turns out the entire time Garibaldi's program has been trying to figure out how does information come in and go out. He sent out the signal to the opposition, and the signal contained their entire conversation, everything that Daniel was doing to lie to the people. And they basically are sending a preemptive strike to prevent them from following through because apparently Daniel's faction was going to do a sneak attack too. So the opposition was like, no, we're going to blow them up. And so they got the missiles are gone. And it was kind of funny to me because Garibaldi is like, yeah, so I kind of figured that you guys were going to have a sneak attack. And since that side is a lot more humane, they're not going to be attacking large civilian populations. They were going to be hitting mainly just military bases and stuff like that. And then he looks at Daniel like, he goes, this station isn't on a military base, is it? And then Daniel goes, "Oh my god!" He's like, "No!" And he runs out of the room, the hologram room. And I thought that was kind of funny because it's like, oh, not only are you creating all of this stuff in like a secret base, but it's a military base. This is a military action,
Mm-hmm.
which again makes me think of the U.S. intelligence and the bullshit that they're doing. The bombs drop and destroy that facility.
Yeah. And it was kind of cool to see just the essence of Michael being a sneaky jerk. But he's doing it for good reasons this time. He got to redeem himself with his sneaky manipulativeness.
The way I look at it, we got to redeem Garibaldi because we only got to see him and Sheridan being friends for like half a season, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
To see them interact in a friendly and a cordial way is actually kind of refreshing. I'm not feeling so hard on Garibaldi this time. Yeah. So then that ends and we jump to 3262, and I thought that this was pretty wild. So this is 1,000 years in the future. And before I start talking about what's going on, could any one of you describe the scenery?
It kind of looks Victorian, but like poor Victorian, not like what we're used to seeing. Um, it
Is this
doesn't look
like
like the
the
future like that.
1700s one where they're dressed up like Robin Hood and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Reminding me of those priests that were like keeping the records like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Friar
those
Tuck.
1,000 years.
Yep.
Yeah, Friar Tuck.
And it was kind of fun. It was fun because, all right, just to kind of give the idea behind it, each of these scenes are showing how the story fades and deteriorates, but also is showing the progress of Earth at the same time. Apparently, what
Mhm.
happens in the distant future, 1,000 years from the 2762 mark, Earth was in what they call the Great Burn, and they lost a lot of their records. And so there is an effort to rebuild Earth, but they're going very, very slow, but not like super slow. They're not starting from scratch. That would be impossible. But humans are not spacefaring right now. They don't have flying crafts. They don't know very much about space, and they have a distorted view of their past. And everything is analog. So everything's in books, it's written down, except for Brother Elwin. He has a digital recorder and he's recording his reports. And it turns out what he is reporting on is the progress of his, I don't know what it, his the progress of his abbey, and he's reporting this to the Rangers. The Rangers are still a thing in the galaxy, but they are invisible to the humans again. It's kind of like, so there was an opportunity for, and probably a need for them to go back behind the scenes because weird happened with humans. The Civil War was mentioned in the 2762. So everything that Garibaldi was trying to prevent still happened. Like there was still a war. We don't know exactly who won, but the Rangers are still around and they're staying underground. Brother Michael is doubting what is written, and we hear about how Sheridan died and was resurrected and then taken away body and soul into heaven.
Mhm.
That's an interesting detail. We hear about Ivanova. We hear about, who was it? Who was the other one? I can't remember.
I thought they kind of mentioned Marcus when they talked about the Ranger. Like the picture in the book looked like
Yeah, the
Marcus.
picture did look like Marcus. Um, the when he was talking about Sheridan, they showed a picture of Lorian, and I thought that was amazing because it looked exactly like him, but it was like a hand drawing thing. And Marcus, his whole thing is like, how do we know that any of this is even true? And Elwin is like, use reason and faith. They go hand in hand. This part, granted, I got some pretty interesting new perspectives on it. It reminds me of what's going on in Foundation season 2. So if you know anything about it, Harry Seldon and the Foundation, he predicted that the Foundation would go through a religious period, and their work on psychohistory and mathematics would be considered like magic because they were so advanced. But what it was, they were using advanced technology that they could give to normal people. And then after
Yeah.
a while, after so much advancement, their whole thing was like, okay, we can just drop the whole religious thing. We're beyond that now. We're working on the next thing now. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And Straczynski, I think he is making a point here. It's
Yeah.
something about the levels of sophistication that civilization has, like access to technology, free information, and all of that stuff. Without it, then it puts us back into superstition because we don't have much to rely on and we have to rebuild our base of knowledge and information for us to escape that. But in the meantime, you just have faith because you don't have knowledge. And then brother Elwin, he finishes his report and he talks about how Michael would be a good addition and become a good recruit, but give him 20 years, he'll be fine, which is like, God, you want it. He'll be in his 40s by then. So in his 40s, you want to recruit him into the Rangers? Okay. And then it makes me think too, like what kind of society they're trying to guide Earth into. Because if it's something similar to the Rangers and the Minbari, then that makes a lot of sense. They need to like give humans a couple hundred years to like get some of that bullshit out of
Well, and I was under the impression that there are still humans in space, but they just don't know about it. Like the faction that lost on Earth, because we have Mars colony, we have the Rangers, we have the Alliance, but maybe because Earth was still, we see in this evolution that there's still people who's like um really Earth centric. So maybe maybe in now Civil War, the Earth centric people lost, and they lost a lot. They lost all their data. They lost all their information, and they went back to the old times because they don't have all the technology and stuff. And the humans in space was like, we don't have to deal with them. They just left them, except for sending the Rangers to like check up on them. Like we still care
or
about being gonna be there.
what could be a horror story to think about. What if they won? And the way that the society that they built is such a regressive society that they push themselves all the way back to like pre-electric society.
Uh huh.
And then the Rangers have to intervene to get humans back up to speed so they can rejoin the rest of the galaxy. It's like, okay, look, y'all, I know y'all love your fascism and all that stuff, but now y'all look kind of dumb. Y'all look real stupid right now. So let's gradually give y'all some ideas because he was talking about they finally have the components to build a gasoline engine,
Uh
and then they need the Rangers to supply the gasoline, but make it look like it's something from a long time ago, not something that we just been doing. And
huh.
it's like, wow, so y'all really have to like manipulate these people into thinking it's a good idea.
Mhm. It is cradling them through evolution to re-evolute. What am I trying to say? Re-evolve.
Yeah.
They have to read it all over again. All right, let's start again from the drawing board. Trying to blow themselves up.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like someone, like we already had the Clark administration try to singe the earth because he couldn't have it. So yeah, that makes sense that they would just like, no, we're not going to be like them. So they started their own fire, destroyed the record, so they couldn't go down in history for doing it too. That's how controlling people do. It's like, no, it was your fault. I ain't do it, as my hand is on the button.
Thinking of alternative ways that that could be looked at makes me think of myself, like trying to disconnect myself as much as I can from the current systems that I disapprove of so strongly that when I learn of things like the earth ships and how I can live off grid and just be encountering my environment to meet all of my needs, and then to have somebody from a more advanced technological perspective be trying to like spoon feed me in the direction of having more than I've got. Yeah, that is very interesting.
Like today, when we have, if we could see where even with access to better information and better technology, people still ignorantly say, "But that's not how I've been doing it. That's not how." But like, how we got a country on the other side of the world that's 10 years more advanced than us, and we sit there and look at their stuff. We can go visit them. We can go learn from them, and people are like, "Nah, that's their crap." Like, really?
That accepts.
There's a country that just outlawed, well, not, yeah, they made it illegal to, they consider it child abuse to force a child into careers or a religion or just like control any aspect of their life other than, actually raising them. Yeah, because it gets abusive. Like there's a point where you can introduce them to things and let them explore stuff, but to force them and threaten them into it is terrible. And most people think that that's how you're supposed to parent. Mm. Then they wonder why society don't want to work.
So to finish the episode, we jump to the far future, and I think this is like a million years into the future.
Yes.
And it is a watcher. This is being of pure light. He is preparing to leave the solar system. So everything that we saw was part of his records that he was putting together about Earth to preserve. And he's transmitting it or he's sending it to New Earth, wherever that is in the galaxy. And then he gets ready to leave. His computer says, "Yay, yeah. So Sol is about to go into supernova and destroy the solar system. I advise you to leave." And he goes, "No, I hear you, but I wouldn't miss this for anything."
You know,
He
Vorlon.
No, he was a human,
No.
Mm,
but this is what humans became.
mm.
He turns into pure energy, and the energy goes into an encounter suit. And the suit that latches closed reminds you of the Vorlons, but it has like a more humanoid look to it.
Mhm.
And I thought that was kind of cool. And then he goes off, and we witness the sun go into supernova, and it destroys, the planets. Um, I thought that was really interesting. I will say there is one part that's a little inaccurate there. It is predicted that when the next phase of the sun, the next big phase of Soul would be that would become a super red giant.
Mhm.
That would destroy the earth.
Yeah. There's people today think that if the earth moves half a mile, we'll all die. So no, I know that won't happen, but there's
Yeah, that
people.
one. Yeah, but yeah, there are people. No, but I think the super red giant it would take up the space of Venus and Mercury, and it would either envelop Earth, like
Mhm.
Earth's orbit, or it would be so close that it would just destroy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it has to evolve before that, and, like, my brain's going. The change from a yellow star to a red dwarf would be gradual enough, maybe, possibly, for some things to evolve, which could explain how this guy becomes energy, and that's not displayed in this because we see a yellow star.
Yeah, it's yellow. It is, yeah. And then it just novas for no reason. That's
Yeah,
the only part that I will nitpick
it
up.
it just over it decides to commit suicide.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Son. And then he flies off. But then after all of that happens, we come back and we see that it's Delenn and Sheridan just thinking about like their legacy and what the future could have for them. And like while all of that is very frustrating because you don't have control over what people say about you when you're dead. Like you don't really have control over what anybody says about you at any time.
Right. When you're
But
alive,
yeah, but they're in a place where they're like really wondering, like, we're at the beginning of this new thing, and I wonder how it's gonna go.
So was all that supposed to be a hallucination of Sheridan? Like just him daydreaming? And him being very negative about himself because everyone's just telling me calling, are they gonna think I'm a mega maniac? Blah blah blah. I did really just save the whole planet's lives. And he's got imposter syndrome after saving the planet. Yeah. And that would also explain like all the emotional explanation, all the stuff, like how it wasn't very, I don't know. It didn't seem like they were being, a lot of them were being too professional. And why would the holograms be conscious of who they are? Why can't you just pull up the hologram that's scheduled, that's planned for what you need and record it so you can send it out? Why are you busy having conversations with the real ones? It's not like he was geeking out about needing to come talk to them like on Star Trek on Lower Decks when they got to go back in time. Like that was it being his thought process makes more sense.
I like the episode because it's just kind of like, okay, we don't have to tell too much of what's going on right now, but let's look forward to the future. Even though this season was kind of all over the place, we got to see a lot of really good story. A lot of really good story. The only stories that I thought were unsatisfying was how part of how the alliance finally came together, and then the Minbari Civil War. The Minbari Civil War could have been a much bigger story, but I realized they had to figure that out quickly. And the whole thing with the telepaths is still hanging out there, still lingering. And so we can expect for them to tackle that in season 5. But yeah, there's a whole season still left of this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me spoil some things. um all of the major stories, like we've essentially seen the end of Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm. Twice.
So, well, twice, yeah. But we've essentially seen the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, just kind of like reflecting over the entire series, what would you say stands out to you? What are some of your favorite points? Some that you didn't like so much?
My favorite part was the first two seasons. Kind of weird. I there was more philosophy in the science fiction aspect, and probably because I mean, like I can get passionate about political stuff, but I'm not like drawn to it as I am with the metaphors of the science. Using science fiction to portray metaphors was something I really enjoyed a lot about the first two seasons. And then once we got into the Shadow War, it kind of got dropped until the end of the Shadow War. And then it was like, oh, yeah, one last little metaphor that's been the metaphor this entire time. And then they leave. And now it's just humans being humans, mostly.
It is easy for me to say what I don't like. Most definitely did not like, what's his name? With the bald head.
Londo?
Yep, Londo getting redeemed. Uh that still
Yeah.
bothers me. But I like that I knew that it was going to happen from like 4 seasons ago. And I had no idea it was going to take this long to happen, but golly. One of the things that is really kind of sad, but I'm really liking, is that Marcus actually died because back in the 90s and stuff, main characters didn't die. And when we watched the beginning of the show come on, like I don't know what that's called, the title part, his actor is still pulling up and it shows him and it's like that dude is dead. And that it kind of sucks, but they're not, you know, this time doing anything to resurrect him or bring him back or anything. And it's just like you have to actually deal with that. Like death is a thing that happens and it's not to some character that nobody knew that just got introduced today so that we can kill somebody off, which is a lot of what like Star Trek would do. And I never really liked that very much.
I liked all of the character development. I liked how they make Babylon 5 important, but it's important to the whole galaxy because of a lot of the things that are happening between the different species. It's not just like it's not just keep the peace, but it's like, hey, humans, we almost died. This would be a good idea so we don't die later, right? Garibaldi does exemplify like the cynicism some of the characters can have because remember he fought in the Earth Minbari War. Well, he was like a ground pounder, and he's one of those people that like after the war just kind of became cynical, and that's why his character is the way it is. Sheridan and Sinclair are experiencing trauma the entire time. Like they have PTSD and don't have a place to really engage with it. The diplomacy between the aliens is cool. And then like the dramatic story that's played out between the Narn and the Centauri, specifically the theatrics between Londo and Jakar. Like to me, they were the stars of the show. They're super good. And I think a lot of fans of the show just remember those two the most because of how powerful their performances were. And honestly, the satisfying ending to the Shadow War, the Earth Civil War, and kind of like the comeuppance that the Centauri are receiving. We don't get to see all of it totally, but it's always insinuated like, yeah, they getting fucked up. Like but yeah, it's such a cool show to watch. And that's why I was like, yo, we gotta watch it. We gotta talk about it. And I wanted to do this part here because I know season 5 does some things very different. The show changes, and it changes in a lot of really interesting ways. I won't say if it's good or bad because you'll just have to experience it. But I would say on the journey thus far, hopefully y'all see why this is something that I watch periodically every 5 years or so to like just get back into this world because the world is so interesting. There are very few sci-fi series that do this. Of course, Star Trek is something that I can always watch again. I tried to rewatch Battlestar Galactica, and that's actually really hard because it was good TV when it came out, but so much good TV has come out since then, it doesn't stand up so much anymore. Does that make sense?
I couldn't get into it in the first place. But then it's like a drama. So I don't like straight drama or horror drama. I can do
It
comedy drama. That's
Yeah.
Resident Alien, that's what it's called. Resident Alien. I
Oh,
love that. Drama, but it's also a comedy. Yeah. But yeah, I saw the first episode of Battlestar Galactica. I'm like, I can't get through this.
Battlestar Galactica follows kind of in the tradition of Lost, where it's mystery box TV show, and then when you figure out what the quote unquote mystery is, you realize like we went through all of that for that. Uh, watching the characters developed is really cool, but like the overall show is just like, man, I wish they could have gone a different direction. The Expanse though, that's one that I'm like, I need to watch that every year because it's so good.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to feel that way about Foundation. That's just such a good show. It is so good. It's underrated right now because everybody's watching Alien Earth, but
Uh,
Foundation I think is the big sci-fi show out right now. So
yeah.
yeah.
I I just started watching Black Mirror. I know I'm very late,
Ooh
but
yeah.
yeah, I have to take breaks. Like I'm just watching an episode a day and then just
Black
sitting
Mirror.
on. Yeah, just sitting on it. So I've only seen 2 episodes. I'm like, I watched one episode this morning. I'm like, I'm good. I can wait. I don't have to run into watching the next episode. And it's like that because they're not all like one thing. They're yeah, individual stories. But I really liked it. It reminds me of the book I was working on. I'm like, oh, yeah, I should work on that again.
Yeah, I also take Black Mirror in small doses because well, especially the first couple of seasons because that stuff was hard. um the last few seasons they've been easing up on the gross out and the like frustration and the horror aspect of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a hard show.
Yeah, I think it
In fact,
like frustration was heavy, and well, not
mhm,
too heavy that I couldn't watch it, heavy enough that I could stay in it, but not want to get more anytime soon. I'm like, let me go to YouTube and find me some brain rot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. All right, let's get on up out of here. We can continue this type of conversation and some side missions too. But when we get back, we're going to be into season 5, and there's some questions we're going to ask because Sheridan is the president. So who's going to be the captain of Babylon 5, and who's going to join him? It'll be fun to find out. So with that said, let's get on up out of here. I'm Legendary Black Lion. You can find me at Legendary Black Lion on TikTok and Instagram. This is Voices in Hyperspace, where you can continue the conversation on our YouTube, our Instagram, our TikTok, all at Voices in Hyperspace. You can also continue the conversation on our Facebook.
I'm Captain Mel Asylum. You can find me at millsrebellion.com, where you can find links to my YouTube, my TikTok, and I have a Discord. And if you like the things I have to say, you might like my book, Unrooting the System, which is also on my website.
Hey y'all, this is Sunday. You can find me at a poker table.
All right. So until next time, we'll see you out there. Peace.